I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Are you ready to win at the game of life? Well, throw out that rulebook and get down to the business of being the best and most authentic version of you. Welcome to the Human Design Podcast. We're changing the rules around success, abundance, purpose, love, and life, where we're creating a planet where everyone can thrive in a world that loves and supports each other. I'm your host, Emma Dunwoody, a qualified master coach, human design expert, podcaster, and entrepreneur that is living the life of my dreams, breaking all the rules while doing it, making a huge impact, and living my design and manifesting miracles on the daily. Join me as I break down and simplify everything you need to live in alignment with your human design, teach you how to recondition your unconscious mind for greatness, and to take back your power so you can manifest your heaven on earth and serve the rest of the planet at the same time. It's time to give up the fear and step into your highest potential, to reach for the stars, to know and live your greatness. It's what you deserve, and it's what the planet really needs from you. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hey, and welcome to today's episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I feel like today, as I'm recording this, and please excuse if you can hear the mowing going on outside. We've had a lot of rain and a lot of sunshine, so there's a lot of, gardening going on out there. So I'm super excited to be here. I'm actually recording this podcast after like a mid-launch. And for those of you who have your own business and you go through this whole launching process, it's intense. However, I'm also coming to you from a time in my life where, I've faced a number of challenges over this second half of this year. And I had this experience mid freaking launch as I'm running this masterclass. I'm doing the VIP class the next day, all of these things. And without even really thinking about it, I had chosen a place to go to so that we could be away as a team and we could focus on all the things that we needed to do. But what I didn't realize was the grief that it would trigger for so many things that have been going on in my life, some really hard stuff. As many of you know, I lost my mum recently, and, there's some other really challenging things going on. And in between this masterclass, I was hit with the most incredible amount of emotion. I also know that it's been going on for a lot of people because I've got a lot of dear friends, non-emotional beings who have really just been posting this whole, this is what behind the scenes look like, or I'm feeling really low at the moment. So I know that there's a bigger cycle going on as well. But as I was going through this emotional roller coaster for me, shedding a lot of grief, there's so many tears, so many emotions, so many things that had been unfelt until that point. And through this the last 2 weeks, one of the other things is it's almost like I've been living this experience of my solar plexus and how it impacts other people. And it really inspired me to do an episode today to help all of you maybe, number one, understand your solar plexus, whether it's defined or undefined, a little better. And then number two, be a little bit more compassionate and understanding about the other. Because I think we make way too many massive assumptions about someone else's experience, especially because through the frame of human design, what do we say? In our undefined centers, we're taking in energy, we're amplifying it, and we're reflecting it back, right? So we take on this almost arrogance that we know exactly how someone else is feeling. And at the end of the day, we really don't. We know a piece of what they're feeling for sure. However, we are not them. So we don't have the mindset, the beliefs, the voice going on in our head. We don't have, all the other things that are going on in our design, whether it's our emotional well-being, our spiritual well-being, our physical well-being. And, unless we're a reflector, and let's be honest, that's 1% of the global population, we are quite a distance from the full story of what's going on inside another human being. And even reflectors, they don't get 100% of what's going on inside another human being. It's a reflection, but we don't understand what causes that reflection. We don't know, we're not that close to the individual. So this is why I'm really inspired today to talk about the emotional solar plexus, and hopefully we can dispel some myths, and whether you're defined or undefined in the solar plexus, maybe work with this energy a little more easily, effortlessly, and with an absolute crap ton more compassion for the other, whether you're defined or undefined. So this actually all started for me a little bit over a week ago when I was having a conversation with someone, and they said to me, well, with a defined sacral and will center, then you just must be able to push through. And I remember in the moment, I didn't react or anything. I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to take that on board. I'll reflect on it. Because from a knowledge-based point of view, like, yeah, that sounds true. But at the time, it didn't feel true. And I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to reflect on that later. I'm not going to, react. I'll just be like, okay, cool. Yep, I'll take that on board. And I started to reflect on it later, and I was like, my God, I feel so much like people don't get my energy. They just see that I'm a manifesting generator. I've got 3 of the 4 motors, and then they assume that I'm just like this Energizer bunny, like I can just go, 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 go. And for any of you guys who have been listening to me, that's not true. That is not the way my energy works. My energy definitely works in spurts. I'm a sprinter, not a marathon runner. I do everything where I use my energy, then I recoup my energy, then I use my energy, then I recoup my energy. And if we just stick to the black and white knowledge, which way too many people do, they don't actually listen to what other people say or what other people feel. I think one of the challenges is that we just make this huge assumption that, well, you've got all this energy, so you should just be able to push through. And one of the things I say to you guys all the time, right, is you have to discover what's true for you. So in this reflection, going back over my experiment, like really, really refining for me how my energy works in an attempt to articulate it and clarify it for me and ultimately for you guys, I really came down to this for me. I don't think that non-emotional people or the original human design knowledge understand quite how exhausting it is to be an emotional being. For all my defined solar plexuses out there, my emotional authorities, tell me, does that feel true for you? Because it feels freaking true for me. I mean, I have a lot of, different energy types. We all know that Justin is a splenic projector. However, his energy is really consistent because he's got that root motor, and the root's that pulse, So in my experiment, and it's not just me, it's the hundreds, thousands of people that I've worked with now, I think that there's this massive misunderstanding that, especially when we're a defined sacral as well as a defined solar plexus, but throw into the mix the next layer of that, which I'll come to, people just assume we have all the energy in the world. However, if you're a human that's running a mechanical wave 24/7, meaning you have a defined solar plexus, which is if you're looking at your chart, it's the triangle facing inwards on the right-hand side. If that's colored in, then I challenge the knowledge, because at the end of the day, I think my emotional wave tires me out. Yes, it gives me energy for all of these emotions and big emotions and, the highs and the lows and all of that thing. But I also need time to recover. And I reflect on my childhood, having an ego projected projector as a mother. She would always tell me, like, I knew when I was physically tired, but I didn't know that I was so emotionally tired. She'd always say, that thing was so emotionally draining for you, Emma. You're emotionally tired. You need to rest. And I even think back, I'm like, really? Like, I knew she was true. She was right. But I didn't really, put the dots together until I was in my teens and, going through teenage years. I was like, wow, yeah, this whole emotional thing, it's so much more tiring. And I want to take that to the next step, because I am a manifesting generator. I do have 3 of the 4 motors. And the thing that tires me out the most is my emotions, like my emotional connection. my emotional empathy, my caring, my compassion, my holding space for people. Like this emotional superpower that I have, hand in hand with the emotional wave that I'm constantly in, it's freaking exhausting. Like exhausting. So when I reflected on this, when this person said, you know, you can just push through, it doesn't work that way. My energy just doesn't work that way. I mean, and a will center, once it's done, it's done. So I have these two motors, which, you know, all like 3 of the 4 motors are inconsistent anyway, but I've got the solar plexus that's tiring me out. As much as it's giving me energy, it's also tiring me out. So, and the next level for that would be if you throw into account that I am a sacral being, then take the sacral away. Wow. Emotional manifestors, emotional projectors. Wow. We talk about how it's the undefined centers that are like zapping all your energy. But I challenge that. I reckon your defined solar plexus is also contributing to that, you know, taking energy. And I've worked with my emotions for years. So I am very resourceful with my emotions. I don't indulge them. I don't repress them. I feel them. I love them. I'm so in tune with my solar plexus these days. So it's not like I'm doing it in an unresourceful way. Like this is an aligned version. And the people I work with, aligned version of the defined solar plexus. So that's the first thing I want to say. And it's kind of putting a question out to those defined solar plexuses out there. Does this resonate with you? Do you feel like, although it gives you this brilliant, like this is this emotional energy, the emotional energy itself also tires you out. So it's this constant being conscious, not only where you are in the emotional wave to make decisions, but also to take care of yourself, to actually be like, well, I need to almost recover from my emotional wave. And that's fine. That's perfect. It's exactly the way it's meant to be. So having said all that, the next point I really want to talk about is taking full responsibility for your emotions as a defined solar plexus. And as someone who has an undefined solar plexus, I want you to take responsibility for the way you receive other people's emotional energy. What does that mean? Because that sounds like, what? That's a bit unfair. So here's the thing. This happened to me last week where, as I said to you, I had a huge, like, watershed emotional week where I was moving through a crap ton of grief and letting go and trauma and unfelt emotion, all the things. And one of the people that was with us a lot of the time, bless her, I love her so much. She's so loving and supportive and all the great things. So this is not at all a criticism or a judgment. It's a learning point. And she walked into the room at one point and she was like, wow, I just feel terrible. And she kind of looked at me and she said, how are you feeling being the emotional being in the room? And I just looked at her, and in that instant, I wanted to burst into tears because I was already dealing with so much internal emotional turmoil. And I'm, you know, feeling up until that point really safe with it, that I can just let it be, let it express. Meanwhile, I'm running masterclasses and other classes in between all of this. And the moment she said it, I felt suddenly so responsible for what she was experiencing. Like, oh, fuck. Like, I don't want her to feel that way. I love this human. I feel terrible that she's feeling this. So it triggered really unresourceful behavior in me, you know? And I think sometimes in our need to be supportive and loving, we fall back on the knowledge and we kind of go, oh, well, is that you? Is that what you're feeling? Da, da, da. But we don't actually put ourselves in the other person's shoes. Like I instantly felt really responsible. I tried to shut that shit down. You know, I tried to sort of stay out of her way, all the things, because I didn't want her to feel like I fucking didn't want her to feel what I was feeling amplified. Let me be very clear about that. And in that moment, and it was a conversation I kind of had later, like one of the things that was really challenging for me was I then shut my emotions down, you know, because I felt like they were negatively impacting someone else that I love and adore, and I don't want her to feel that way. And it wasn't a big thing. Like I didn't really overthink it because, again, I'm not really at that place anymore. But on reflection, like I just shut that shit down and I tried to keep a lid on it as long as I could. And then after she left, well, it just exploded. Everything exploded because I could feel really, really like I wasn't going to negatively impact anyone. And the point is that sometimes the knowledge can arm us with just that knowledge without actually thinking through how our process or what we say is going to affect the other. So I want to come back to this piece about responsibility. So when we're defined, I often talk about we need to take responsibility for whatever that energy is. We need to take responsibility for it because we're influencing the other with that energy. I want to add to that wherever we're undefined, take responsibility for the energy that you're receiving, because you're receiving, this person's truth, this person's being, this person's energy, and in many cases they are doing it. I would actually say in most cases, people are doing the very best they can. The very best they can. And you're actually amplifying and reflecting back that. So to really be able to, not only as a defined solar plexus or any center for that matter, take full responsibility for the emotions that you take into the room, as in don't indulge them, don't repress them. At the same time, I would really encourage people with an undefined solar plexus to really understand that so many people, especially those of you listening to this podcast that have a defined solar plexus, they are doing the best they possibly can being an emotional being. And I've got to be really honest with you guys. Like, being an emotional being isn't necessarily the easiest freaking job. Let me be very clear. Like, when we make big life decisions, we can flip-flop for days, weeks, months because of this lack of clarity. Like we can want to push things through and get to a decision and force, but we just can't. And we have to ride out this emotional wave. And it's really like, it's not easy or simple. And to throw into all of that, we also have to learn to work with our emotions and let them be our teachers and all of these things. And at the same time, not take them too seriously. Just let them be. So there is this huge balance as an emotional being, whether you're in a really high consciousness place or you're in a low consciousness place. Like, we are doing the best we can living in this emotional wave with it constantly zapping our energy, constantly working with emotions, knowing that we actually don't ever get a breather from them. We have to be with them. So we have to make the best of it, right? And I really believe that having a defined solar plexus is a total superpower. I love it. But I really realize as I'm going through this time, and I am really high consciousness, I've done a lot of cleaning up of my energy, of my channel, of my, my emotions. Like, I'm doing a freaking brilliant job here. And sometimes it's going to feel uncomfortable for other people. However, it can't be my responsibility. It can't be my responsibility how you react to my energy. What I want to say is, like, there's a lot of people out there that aren't taking responsibility for that. So if my energy is making you feel uncomfortable, then you need to put a boundary in place. You need to be like, oh, wow, I need to step away from this. Or you need to learn to let people's energy move through you and not attach it to yourself and not be like, wow, that makes me feel really uncomfortable. And because the moment you do that, that's attaching to your identity and it's going to stick like glue. So holding that space for responsibility for other people's emotions, knowing that they're doing the best they possibly can in every moment. I mean, we talk so much, or I do, from an emotional point of view that, I'm surrounded by non-emotional people. So I take so much responsibility for the emotions that I bring in the room. Like, seriously, I've got people that can just burst into tears if I'm feeling it, So I take so much responsibility for my emotions, whether it's, feeling them, expressing them, gratitude, the stories I tell myself, my mindset, enough rest for myself, sleeping well, eating well, freaking going in the ocean. Like, I do all the things to keep myself, so cleansed so that I don't unresourcefully impact the other. However, at some point, the other needs to take responsibility for the way that they are responding or reacting to my emotions, because it can't be all on the emotional being. It can't be all our, for the want of a better word, fault. Now, I also just want to cover this off that this has got nothing to do with the person that was experienced. She was the opposite. She held space. She took her own, she had boundaries. She went and, got in her own space. She went and walked. She did all the things. So she did all of the resourceful things that I'm just sharing with you. However, this is the thing I really want you guys to understand. We need to be more compassionate, non-emotional versus emotional. We have to be more compassionate for each other. We have to take full responsibility for the way we are designed and what we can bring to the party. One of the other big challenges for being an emotional being, and, this is big for me and, it's actually big in my circle of friends at the moment, where there's some big life decisions that need to be made. And as much as I would like to have my sacral just go, yep, no, it doesn't work that way for me. And these are decisions that are made over time. And I flip-flop and I think I have clarity and then I don't have clarity. And I just have to keep taking one step after the next. And one of the things that I just want to be super aware of is that I know that I feel really conscious about the people in my life that don't have emotional authority, that I am flip-flopping, that I'm going back and forward, and I do my very best to communicate, this is how I'm feeling, this is where I'm at, da-da-da-da-da. However, I also understand that it's freaking uncomfortable for me, so it must be uncomfortable for you. So again, I would invite compassion. I would invite a great deal of compassion to, especially if it's like that, one of you is and one of you isn't emotional. Just get that, again, let's just hold this space. Let's judge people on their intentions, not their behavior. Let's assume that they're doing the very best they can in that situation and just hold space for that. Because, I definitely appreciate, especially my business, Taylor is a sacral authority and making decisions is simple for her. And one of the things that I'm so grateful for in our relationship is that she just holds space for the inconsistency sometimes of my decision-making process, the flip-flopping. Because ultimately, I'll hit on it. Like the smaller decisions are super easy, but some of the bigger decisions, we have to go back and forward. And that's just my process. And the more pressure I put on myself to not be that way, the further away the decisions get. So that would be the other thing that I would want to say is that those of you that have a defined solar plexus versus those that don't, just understand that that's the whole point of emotional clarity. It takes time to get there. And if you're one of the lucky ones that has a different kind of authority that has more instantaneous clarity, like maybe a sacral or a spleen, then just be patient with the rest of us, whether it's emotional beings or soundboarding beings, reflectors. We just need time. And if you can hold space for that process, it is so incredibly supportive for us. And it's just, we feel so loved and understood, because I think oftentimes being an emotional being can be just as frustrating for the emotional being as it is for the non-emotional being. So I would just really encourage you guys to be compassionate and care about each other. Do the very best you can, whether you're defined or undefined. Make sure you're taking full responsibility, okay? You're taking full responsibility of how you're responding and reacting to emotions, whether they're yours or somebody else's. So I want to wrap up with 3 things to know and 3 things to do. And the first thing, if you take 3 things away from this podcast, the first thing is it's challenging for both defined and undefined, this emotional solar plexus. We're going through this huge time of this mutation. We are learning to move out of, and analyzing things with the mind, and we're moving into learning to guide ourselves through feeling. So we are in this huge experimental stage, whether we're defined or undefined. This is really important that we feel safe to feel our way through life. So understand that it's challenging for both and support each other and ourselves as best we possibly can. The second thing I want you to take away is that being defined in the emotional solar plexus isn't just tiring for those that are amplifying and reflecting our energy. It's freaking tiring for us too. So no, we can't push through is the answer to that. No, we can't. Please have compassion for emotional beings, because yes, it's a motor, and yes, many of us might have 3, even 4, all 4 motors, but that doesn't mean that we have consistent and reliable energy to push through into force. No freaking human does. And if you have an emotional solar plexus, then it's tiring you out as much as it's giving you energy for emotions. So just be conscious of that. The third thing is just to understand that emotional clarity can take time. It can take seconds or it can take months. And that is okay. It is perfectly fine for it to be that way. All right. So 3 things that I want you to do to take away from this podcast. And, action is everything. If we actually want to manifest our dreams, if we want to manifest the feeling that's driving us to our future self, to creating the life of our dreams, we have to take action. And the first thing I want you to do is be compassionate, defined or undefined. Let's stop saying, oh, you're the other half of the population that's so different. Oh, you're so different. You make me feel blah, blah, blah. Let's not do that. Let's be compassionate. Let's be more compassionate and take full responsibility. Like, wow, that could be intense. I have so much compassion for the undefined solar plexus. It's taken me so much longer to have compassion for the defined solar plexus. Let's just have equal compassion for both, yeah? The next thing that I think is so important, and please do this all the time, is can you not assume how other people feel? I think this is one of the biggest challenges with human design is we go around talking about, well, in our undefined places in our chart and our centers, we amplify and reflect back the other person's energy. And with that, there is this massive assumption that we know how they feel. And we freaking don't. We really do not know how the other person is feeling. We know a part of how they're feeling. How they're feeling is definitely having an impact on us, but we don't know how they're feeling, okay? So can we stop assuming we know more than we do about the other, and instead be curious, ask questions, no more blanket statements. Let's just be more curious and don't assume we know how the other feels. The third thing is to be patient. To be patient. As a defined emotional person, it takes time. It just does, whether we like it or not. And I know for me, I'm an MG, I've got the 3420, I want everything yesterday. And that's just not the role that my authority plays. That's not how I'm guided through life. So be patient. As an emotional being, be patient. And those that are non-emotional beings with an undefined solar plexus, please be patient with us, because we can feel your pressure. We can feel your frustration with our lack of clarity. We can feel all of those things, even if we are defined. We're not idiots. So please be patient. Be patient with your undefined friends. Be patient with your defined friends. Be patient with your own definition, whatever that might be. Okay, that's all I have to say on the solar plexus today. I trust you got what you needed from today's episode, and I so look forward to having you on the next one. Bye for now. Thanks everyone for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.